If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 408 of the SevereMMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Lucas Radibi of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald, as again we talk about MMA, plenty of it, as always. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Manscaped, and spring has sprung with our friends over at Manscaped, the leaders in below the waist grooming, and they have the best tools for some spring cleaning in your pants. Trust me, your confidence will be blooming like flowers. Look your best this spring and join the other 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Use the promo code SevereMMA to get 20% off and free shipping over at manscaped.com. And it's been well over a year now since myself and Graeme have been using Manscaped, and that Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 is absolutely brilliant, still going strong. Inside the bundle you have the Lawnmower 4.0 as well as the Weed Whacker for your ear and nose hair, the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, the Crop Reviver Toner, the Boxer Briefs, and the Travel Bag as well. So let's talk about the Lawnmower 4.0. It's an electric trimmer that provides the proprietary advanced skin safe technology. It's designed to be used on loose skin. Although your balls might look like punching bags, don't treat them like that. It's waterproof and equipped with an LED light, so you can trim in the dark or in the shower. Nose hair, ear hair, is that attractive? No one finds that attractive. So you need a Weed Whacker to get rid of that hair. Again, that has a proprietary skin safe technology, which helps to reduce nicks, snags, and tugs. The package also comes with the Crop Preserver deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner. Everyone knows they're my favorite now at this stage. They're absolutely brilliant, and put them in your Shed Travel Bag, which is a free gift, along with the Boxer Briefs, which I know everyone finds absolutely brilliant. Always use the right tools for the job, and head to their website and check out all of the tools to help you upgrade your hygiene routine. So save 20% and get free shipping with that code SevereMMA at Manscaped.com. It's 20% off and free shipping with the code SevereMMA at Manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. All right, Graeme, let's talk a little bit about mixed martial arts. And actually, before we do, we were just talking there off air before we started that I don't know if it'll probably hopefully be up by the time we get this, but Ian was in Ireland and he interviewed Danny McCormick. I think there's an interview with Sean O'Bannon and as well coming that we just I think that was just happening as we were coming live here, but the interview with Danny, we've both been able to check it out, so that'll be up shortly. It's a very, 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 very good interview. I can't speak highly enough of that, so if people haven't seen it, even if you're listening to this and you don't know Danny that much or anything like that, this is the type of interview you need to watch. It's a really, really, really good, heartwarming, interesting interview, and
very honest as well.
Very honest, yeah. You'll come out of it with something, and that's not always the case. Even for interviews I do or anyone does in MMA these days, it's very hard for someone to be as honest as she is, and I suppose it's quite easy after she just won the title there a week ago, so it's a little bit easier and it's good timing, and she knows Ian and everything like that. But I just had to mention that right off the top because that's very good. And check out everything over on SevereMMA.com and our Patreon as well, patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. We've some great stuff there, and also our YouTube was demonetized. It has been for the last month, so we're if you want to help us out, and we don't know if we're going to get it back, to be honest, so we're kind of half up.
We've been wrongly prosecuted or persecuted by evil forces on YouTube, so
more evil forces even than YouTube. I think myself and Graeme have a fucking theory that someone has been trying to take us down, but I don't know. We all
well the things we got demonetized for we didn't do.
So it's ridiculous.
Having to wait a month to reapply and then a month for them to reply to your reapplying is just fucking.
Oh god, typical. Anyway, let's get into it. Well, I suppose for the last while we've been we won't bother talking about judging now for a while. We'll talk about the fights first. Just quickly on the Vera Sandhagen one, I feel like we have to. And look, the UFC fight night, Vera versus Sandhagen, was in San Antonio in Texas, and we know what we're going to get when we go to Texas, and it's not good. And last night there were some very dodgy scorecards, and it was not good. In the main event, we'll go through the fight in a second, but basically, if you haven't seen the fight, Corey Sandhagen won handy, and one judge
maybe dropped one round, yeah,
maybe two at most. Like I saw some people scoring the third for him. I actually scored the fifth for Vera, but at most, you could argue a 48-47 Sandhagen at the very much. Like the rest were not at all close in any way, shape or form. No way did Vera win the fight, and that's me who understands, who's done the judging fucking panel and all. And one judge scored at 48-47 for Vera, and it turns out I went up and I looked him up, and he has put in 2 scorecards and made decisions before this. Now, that doesn't mean he hasn't been judging, and I think he is a relatively experienced referee, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been judging on the local scene and all like that. But the fact that you're in a UFC main event and you've never done, let's say, some of the big like LFA cards or a load of Bellator cards or a load of, you're on this side of the world, Cage Warriors cards or whatever it might be, stack them up. You've done, 30 undercards of Bellator fights, 10 undercards of UFC fights, and you made your way, and now you're doing a UFC main event. Fair enough, right? Fair enough. This guy had done 2 UFC fights before this and nothing else on MMA decisions. 2 UFC fights on one night, and now he's in the main event. And the problem with this is, right, it's Texas, but every time there's an event in Texas, before the event we're saying, oh no, it's going to be a problem because it's Texas. After the event, you have people like myself looking up MMA decisions, seeing that the guy who put in a shitty scorecard has done 4 scorecards before, and I'm like, well, this is correlating, isn't it? And some people are saying, oh, this is just ineptitude, or he's been paid off or something like that. I'll tell you now, and this is, you can take this as sacrosanct, right? Usually, in my opinion, you can throw it out there, you can take it or not. If you're in that position and you have basically never done it before, right? Or never even been close to doing something like that before, the amount of fucking pressure that is on you to step into a main event, like to even just be cage side and be like, oh my God, this is a massive pressure situation in a fight like this at the very top of a UFC championship division. That is going to make you panic unless you've done 30 Bellator cards, unless you've done, fucking Amasov versus whoever the next challenger is.
Even UFC prelims.
Yeah, exactly. He's only done 2 UFC prelims. You are going to panic when you're put into that situation. You're not going to be able to see the fight correctly in the mindset that you should be. Like, it takes practice to be in that level of judging. And I said it before, people are always like, and I was talking to someone during the week about it, why aren't there 5 judges? Why aren't there 9 judges? Because there aren't that many top level judges in the world. And to get to a top level judge, you have to do it tens, hundreds, thousands of times. And for a lad who's done it twice, we expect him to be at a top level to get in there. Like, I wouldn't blame this guy at all. Joel Ojea is his name. I have absolutely zero criticism of him apart from him putting in a ludicrous card, okay? The criticism is on the commission for putting someone like that in this position. Like, if he goes away and the next, let's say he's in California and he does 3 Cage Warriors cards next year. Let's say he does, 5 Bellator events. Let's say he does the UFC undercards the next 2 or 3 times they come there, and he does LFA. Like, in this time, 2 or 3 years' time, this guy could be a top level judge, a great judge. But that's just not the case right now. And for a commission to put him in there, to make that decision to put him in there, is just absolutely ludicrous. And when you make a ludicrous decision like that, you're going to get a ludicrous card like this poor unfortunate guy handed in. And I 100% believe it's not this man's fault whatsoever. It's not his fault whatsoever. Look, I talk about judging all the time, right? If I was put into this position right now, having never judged a fight, I would be shitting it. Like, imagine what you think, Graeme. Like, if you were put in there, if anyone listening to this, we all know MMA, we probably all know judging.
The stakes of it, like, if that fight is closer and the other judges, or one of the other judges doesn't score it for Sandhagen or whoever the fighter is that's kind of clearly enough won the fight, that's huge. Like, that's a win bonus. That's your next fight being towards a title fight. In this case, you take a big step back if you lose. There's a lot on the line here. And like, if I was a fighter with the history of like the Texas Commission, I wouldn't want to fight in Texas. I'd be staying as far away from Texas as I could. Like, especially if I thought the fight had a good chance of going to a decision. As you said, it's not really this guy's. It is a little bit his fault for getting at least one pretty clear round the wrong way and getting the wrong winner of the fight. But as you said, him being there in the first place is just a baffling decision. Luckily, the right guy won, and he gets paid what he should and kind of progresses his career as he deserves. But in another situation, it could go another way. And if I was Sandhagen, if I was any fighter looking at this and looking at the history of Texas, I wouldn't be fighting in Texas.
Yeah, there were another few cards throughout the night as well, and it invariably kind of came down to those Texas judges. And you know the weird thing as well, like I don't know if it's changed or not. I probably should follow up on it, but like years ago, I did an article on the 3Ds coming in now. The 3Ds have adjusted, and Texas basically said, we're not bringing it in, and they probably have now since that, but they said we like tell our judges not to do it, kind of thing. Like they said they sit them all down and they tell them what way to judge. Like, so even if it's, so I saw someone said to me yesterday, they're bringing referees, why don't they bring in judges? They do bring in judges, but even the judges they bring in, like what kind of advice are they giving?
Direction are they being given? Yeah.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. It's just,
and when your mind is set to judge as a judge, professional judge, to judge one way, and you're told, you're going to judge this slightly different way, if that is the case, then that must be difficult to deal with as well. As you said, you're trying to concentrate. You have to hand in your round scorecard directly after the round, and an inexperienced guy, it's just a bad decision to put him in there. And you'd say hopefully they've learned their lesson, but we've seen in the past that they probably haven't.
Yeah, indeed. And like, this just gives credence as well to people saying judging is terrible all the time and everything. Like when, we talk about it all the time, it's not as bad as people obviously make out, but it wasn't great. There's another card as well, we'll get to it when we go through it, but there's just a couple of ones that like, they were close. There wasn't probably a robbery after this. Well, this wasn't a robbery either because the right guy won, Sandhagen won, but it's just like two decisions like that like weren't right. The wrong guy won, and we'll get to him. But let's finish off talking about the main event, I suppose, or let's start talking about the main event, because it was just a brilliant performance from Corey Sandhagen throughout the fight. I said earlier on maybe Cheeto could have won the third. I don't believe that at all. I think Corey Sandhagen swept him for the first 4 rounds pretty easily, to be honest. He was just landing the better shots. He was getting takedowns over and over. He was landing some good ground and pound. It was just like a clear Corey Sandhagen fight. Cheeto almost caught him in the second in a guillotine, but Sandhagen got on top and he landed shots. As we said, Cheeto a little bit better in the third, but Sandhagen was clearly landing better. He landed more hard shots. I think Cheeto landed 1 hard shot in the middle of the round. And like, okay, maybe this is the turning point. And then immediately Sandhagen landed a hard shot that was pretty much the same. And then he landed 2 more hard shots after that. So like he had way more numbers in terms of the accumulative shots, and then he had more hard shots as well. So like I don't think that round 3 goes to him at all. There was 3 takedown attempts at the start of round 4, and he didn't get him, and he just kind of started moving around and picking him off, and he was just kind of coasting at this stage. Again, a few takedown attempts in the 5th, got 1, but I think when it kind of got to the feet, Cheeto was landing a little bit more, and I think the last 15 seconds probably took it for Cheeto. I actually do think Cheeto hurt him bad at the right end.
I think he probably edged the round. I was kind of thinking to myself as the round ended, if that kind of had happened in the first half of the round or at the very start of the round, that sequence from Bear, maybe, it seems closer in my head. So it does stand out in your head that that's what Vera did. So I did actually give him that round in my head. But thinking about it now, I'm like, that round could have went either way as well. Sandhagen, giving that round to Sandhagen at 50-45, I've no problem with that either.
Yeah, I can definitely see it that way. But I do think, like, if you're talking about the most effective work in the round, in a relatively close round, I think it was definitely Cheeto's last 20-15 seconds. Like I say it again, I really do think he was hurt there once. I seen him with one big shot.
I don't know, because I was thinking, like, if there's like 2 minutes, 3 minutes to go in the round, that happens, is he kind of like, oh shit, let me get away and make sure I win this fight, or is he kind of just more like composed? And I don't know how much was just like, oh shit, I better not get, end up losing this fight in the last few seconds after dominating.
Yeah,
if that played into it. Yeah,
I think it did a little bit, but I think he actually did a great job of doing exactly what you said there, of kind of backing away, not, you know, letting his hands go and try to counter a guy who's just hitting him. And, you know, as I said, tweeted last night, like Sandhagen was on with Ariel before, and Ariel, you know, when Ariel used to care about open scoring and stuff, and he basically said, I love open scoring so I could coast at the end of fights. Like, look at NFL games and basketball games and stuff where they coast, which is incidentally the most fucking boring thing in sports, and if you could change that, it'd be absolutely great. But that's what some people want in MMA. And Danny, yeah, she called me out. She called me out actually. And do you know what she said there about the fighters themselves? No, and I can understand that. And
but that's going to lead to what Corey said about posting.
Exactly is, yeah. And I've honestly, I've never really been on that side of it before. I've never really, that's never really been one of my big negatives on it. But like, it kind of has to be, doesn't it? And you know, Candice released their stats on it before, and I remember your man sent them to me and he goes, oh, that doesn't happen. And I remember I went through them and I was like, but it actually does. And I showed him this and it, and he's like, oh yeah, I suppose it actually kind of does. So like, even the people who are doing open scoring are like massive.
But it definitely depends on the fighter and the attitude and stuff. But I can definitely see a large number of fighters and coaches telling them in the corner, okay, well, you know, we're 2 rounds up here, don't do anything stupid. And
the stats, even though they say that it doesn't suggest that, it absolutely does. But anyway, this Sandhagen kind of did this without open scoring anyway, but he did it, I think, mostly because the takedowns wouldn't work in the first part of the 4th round. But all in all, look, it was a domination by Sandhagen. I thought his footwork was absolutely brilliant. He's switching his stances, and Cheetah he just never showed up. Like I did a spoof of the Skip Bayless tweet last night where I was like, I was wrong about being wrong about Vera. In the end, I was in a shock to me. I was actually right in the end. So yeah, like.
Do you think it was just there's levels to this, and that's the very kind of the upper echelon guys are just too much for Vera, or do you think it was like partly a bad day at the office or a style matchup, or is it a case that he's just kind of that notch below in your opinion?
It wasn't a bad day at the office. That's one thing I would say. No, was it a bad style matchup? Absolutely a terrible style matchup. But like, who's a better style matchup? If you get me, I think it is both levels and a bad style matchup. I think he has improved his level, and now maybe he can change and adjust again because he's proven already in his career that he can do that. So give it another couple of years and maybe, but like, Sandhagen is a level below the very top, and if you're a level below him, that's a lot of levels to rise in a sport that's rising at the very top anyway. That's going to be hard. It's going to be very, very hard to overcome that and get back. But as I said, he has shown that he can rise levels before, but it's, you know, to rise from maybe like the top 25 to the top 15 is one thing. But to rise from the top 15 to the top 5 to the top 2 or 3, that's very much another thing. Like, there's elite, and then there's the elite of the elite, and we're talking about bantamweight, which is the best division in the UFC now. I think everyone will probably agree with that. That's the elite of the elite of the elite. And for someone like Cheeto Vera to rise there, like, I think the thing about Cheeto is, right, would you say, like, does he have good to, you know, passable wrestling? He probably does. Like, does he have good to passable striking? He probably does. I think what lets him down is he is very smart at landing his big shots against someone like Sandhagen, who is like not defensively great, and that's kind of what has carried him. But is he like the fastest, most athletic fighter in the world? I don't think so. Like, when he comes up against someone like Sandhagen, let's say if he was to fight Cejudo, I mean, we don't know what Cejudo's going to look like, but Cejudo before Aljamain, that's going to be very, very tough to fight any of those guys with those advantages they have over you in speed and athleticism and game planning and all-round ability. It's like you're a good fighter, you know. And do you know what? I thought this about Leon Edwards too, and I turned out to be 100% wrong. So maybe he can come and do it as well. But Leon, I think, is a little bit better in kind of all those areas as well. It just feels like Cheeto is a very good fighter, but a limited fighter. And I don't think
kind of with Leon Edwards, we kind of said it like over the years. If he can put it all together, because like in every actual dimension of MMA, he's very good, but can he make it all happen together? And you know. So I think that's a little bit different with the Leon Edwards situation. Like For Vera, I don't think there's much chance of him, you know, following the footsteps of Leon. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I would be very shocked. For Sandhagen now, they're talking about Jashvili, which I think would be a fun fight. It's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be a very, very tough fight. But, you know, there's a couple of matchups I'd like to see for Jashvili, and not in terms of even people, but in terms of styles. And I think this kind of elusive footwork that Sandhagen showed in this fight would probably work pretty well against Jashvili, or well, be fun to see against Jashvili anyway, because like everyone talked about the last day for Petr Yan, that it was his footwork and his ability to move that was the biggest issue here against Jashvili. So if Sandhagen has that, and also I'd love to see the Brian Ortega fight. I know it's up a weight, but I'd love to see that fight. Like, is Jashvili going to run in with takedowns all the time against someone like an Ortega when he can guillotine him? You know,
is there talk of that, or
no? That was just me coming up with that sort of style. Like, you know, someone who's like a top jiu-jitsu fighter. I think that'd be an interesting one. But yeah, it looks like Sandhagen and Jashvili is going to happen now, because obviously Aljamain is off limits for Jashvili because they're teammates. Do you know what I'm very interested to see though? Like, let's say Aljamain loses to Cejudo. Like, does Jashvili like immediately come in and try to take that spot and get a title shot, or does he like let Aljamain work his way back? Or like, this can't end well. Like, see Aljo with Conor actually. Like, he's a pretty big 135er, like, to be honest. So I think he could move up, but that's easier said than done, moving up. We talked about that before, you know, mentioning Conor. He's one of the few guys that was able to actually do it. Almost everyone can do it. Almost everyone falls short. And for Aljo just to think he's going to go up and have as much success, like, if I'm Aljo, if I'm any UFC champion, I'm like, well, I'm fucking holding on to my belt. I'm dominating here. I'm making money here for a long time. Like, if I lose, everyone's getting an immediate rematch. I should get an immediate rematch as well and find my way back there into a big fight as well. Like, I'm not like, just because this lad's my teammate, I'm like, well, you know, congratulations, you're very good as well, but this is my fucking time, this is my belt. Like, what do you think of that? Like, that can't end well, like, can it?
Trying to predict how like things are going to work out, you know, in the UFC with the matchmaking and the injuries and all that stuff. It's you know, it's a waste of time these days. Really, I just wait to see if the matches are announced, and even then, I wait to see who pulls out. And I kind of stop. I used to kind of like imagine the possibilities, but you know, you need like a fucking, what you call, like an 8-ball to crystal ball to know what's going to happen in the future. But
even then, the ones that make sense, like that you think are no-brainers, are not even happening anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I don't know. It's just there's very little rhyme or reason with the matchmaking these days. Even at the top level, like a lot of things that seem to make sense timing wise, guys coming out without injuries, rankings wise, that seem to make a lot of sense. They don't seem to happen all that often anymore, which is you know, strange. But I don't know, like the rankings in themselves, you know, when they came in, I really didn't like them, and I still don't like them. But if they're going to be there, they should be used more in terms of matching people up.
Yeah, I think a big part of it as well is, you know, we've talked about oversaturation now for a fucking decade, but like, when you have 44 cards a year you have to fill up, like, let's say they want Corey Sandhagen for a fight card in 6 weeks time, and the Jashvili fight makes sense. If Jashvili has a fucking torn hamstring and he can't fight for the next, let's say he can't fight until 9 weeks time, then they're just going to move on and give Corey Sandhagen the next guy.
Oh, you're going on a 2-week holiday, are you? Okay, no,
we're strict title up there. Yeah.
You don't want to fight, is it? Okay, Grant.
Yeah, we joke, but that's exactly what's happening. And like that sort of example, that's exactly what is fucking happening, and what has been happening for a while, especially at the highest level, you know. And that you know, for a good promotion doesn't make. And yeah, it's interesting. But anyway, we've talked about that ad nauseum at this stage. And like, I remember like when the oversaturation thing happened at the start, and it's something people don't talk about as much anymore, but I think it's a massive issue, bigger now than it's ever been, to be honest. I think a lot of people kind of not necessarily predicted exactly these things, but predicted issues, and we fucking seen them. Like, we really, like, look at this fucking card. Like, there was some very good fights on this, but also like a lot of people you've never heard of. Like that, I thought it was very funny. Your lad Stephen Peterson, who went up to Bisping and was like, "Oh, you know, we've had a few back and forths, and you know, maybe I'm not your biggest fan for things you said about me." And you could see Bisping like, "I have never seen this man in my life." you could just see it. And he's like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Exactly. And I was shocked to see Stephen. Hold on, let me just click on him, because like he fought someone, and I remember the fight. Which fight was it? Let me just see. The Julian Erosa fight, I think. Oh no, the Chase Hooper fight. The Chase Hooper fight was the one. So I remember him from that, right? But like, he's actually fought some good guys. He's fought Alex Caceres, he's fought Luis Pena, he's fought Julian Erosa. So like, but still, he's like not exactly a massively memorable guy. And it's weird, because someone with 8 UFC fights before, who's fought good opposition like that, like everyone would know them. And now he's just like some random guy. And when he retires, everyone's kind of, me included, like, it's kind of laughing at us. Like, why is this random undercard guy getting so much mic time? Like, it's bizarre. But like, that's kind of what's happened to the UFC. Like, the guy he beat him, Lucas Alexander. Like, if he walked down the street, would you know who he was? If Daniel Pineda walked down the street, Albert Juraev, you wouldn't have a clue. Like, you know, these people are just fucking and not to say they're not good fighters or anything like that, but this is what the UFC has led us to, because like 44 events a year. Lucas
Alexander actually did look good, you know, but
yeah, but even if they do, they're lost in the middle of it all. Like, how many fighters do we see coming in? Like, say Jai Herbert. People don't know how good Jai Herbert is because he's like lost in the shuffle. Same with Nathaniel Wood, and even to a certain extent, like the likes of Jack Shore or whoever else it might be. They're just kind of lost in the shuffle there, and it's very, very unfortunate, and because they're lost in the shuffle. Because, you know, I saw, you know, Fern O'Brien was on to me the other day, Brian McMahon, and he was like, I said something about, like, you know, this is why cards are filled with Dana White Contender Series people, and they're not signing AJ McKee. And I was like, oh, well, there's 2 champions or whatever came from the Dana White Contender Series. Yeah, right. How many fighters came from the Dana White Contender Series? Let's say 100, right, for argument's sake. 90 of them are shit, right? 90 of them are just random undercard fighters who will probably go like 3-3 in the UFC, lose 2 more fights and get caught, and we'll never see him again. Like, we're just getting piles and piles and piles of them. Loads of them. And like, that's great for them, and I'm delighted they're getting that 50 grand or 60 grand or whatever it might be to have those few fights and a few wins. But like, this is supposed to be the top of the top of the top in MMA, and it's just not that anymore. It's just really not that anymore. I know people are probably saying, oh, we've heard this over and over. We actually don't hear this enough, because they've ruined the product. Like, they've ruined, I always say the Ferrari and Fiat thing, they're owned by the same company. But you know the difference between a Ferrari and a Fiat, like, you know the difference between the two of them. One is higher upper end cars, and one is, you know, maybe a good car. You know, maybe it lasts you for 10 years.
Volkswagen and Skoda.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. It's bizarre. Anyway, let's move on. Holly Holm and Yana Santos. Well, I was one of the people that had Holm bet by decision, and I was panicking in the middle of this because I was sure she was going to beat Yana Santos. Biggest problem here is, and I thought Dana White was hilarious afterwards in his idiocy, as he usually is. Yana Santos' biggest issue here was she was getting beaten on the ground by, a world champion striker, basically, who, okay, she's not exactly fucking, Francis Ngannou on the feet in terms of knocking you up, but she will beat you on the feet if you fight her on the feet. And Dana White was like saying, why did Santos keep engaging with her? I'm like, well, she kept engaging with her because she was definitely going to lose on the feet. Like, if you play a distance game with Holly Holm, you're absolutely fucked if you're Yana Santos, because she's 100% going to beat you there. Maybe if you get in close and you put her against the cage and you try to take her out, maybe you'll end up on top, maybe you'll end up getting a submission or beating her.
Maybe you can grab her back if she makes a mistake. Yeah.
Exactly. You're never going to beat her on the feet, just never. So I think Yana Santos spent 3 rounds losing, and I think she did the right thing. To be honest, she should have gotten finished probably a couple of times. But she was very tough and she refused to give up. There was never one point in that fight where Yana Santos, I don't think, thought she was going to win, which is, fair play to her, even though it's absolute delusion. But Holly Holm just dominated, and she was just a better all-around fighter. Honestly, I couldn't believe how close this betting was, and I picked Holly Holm, obviously coming in her by decision at almost even money. Was fucking. I was saying before, and it was kind of free money, but like when the fight happened, she almost finished her. But she looked good, Holly, didn't she? For 41 years of age, you know, even it's a great matchup for her, an easy matchup to be honest. But still, she had to go out and do it, and she did it well, Graeme, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Like, you know, and she's obviously known for her striking and, you know, the knockout of Ronda Rousey and all, but she has been in MMA for a long time, and she does know the basics and was able to of grappling, and she was able to use that kind of unexpectedly, which probably, you know, if you had surveyed people before, I don't think many people would have seen the fight going that way. But you know, as you said, it's a good bounce back fight. You know, when you've lost a close decision in your last one, and you're 10 months later coming in, you just want to get the win. You want to make sure she didn't take any damage. She kind of, you know, didn't fight the most exciting fight, but she fought to what seemed to be her game plan pretty well, and, you know, kind of took the easy win, in my opinion, and was never really in trouble. So yeah, for her, it's a win. It's a good performance in terms of, you know, not taking any damage and dominating the fight. So yeah, she says she wants to go for the title one more time. So that was the first vital step towards doing that. And, you know, with the divisions the way they are, and the star power and the name power of Holly Holm, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if she wins one or two more and is put into a title shot if she can win. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised either at all. I think that probably will end up happening. So we'll wait with bated breath and see if that will happen. Do you know what I think might be an interesting matchup, even though she's kind of been moving around and maybe not winning all that much? What about her versus Miesha Tate too? Like, Miesha beat her obviously the last time. You know, similar enough in ages and where they are in their careers. I think that might be an interesting one if they could put it together.
Yeah, Miesha didn't look great.
She's coming off 2 losses, yeah. But yeah. Maybe not, but I think maybe in future, let's say if Holly was to lose her next one, maybe then, but yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. Nate the Train Landwehr looked good. Then he got the rear naked choke against Austin Lingo. He's a guy, they were building up like he's some fucking killer, and he like lost 2 of his last 4 fights or whatever. Got beaten by Julian Rosa, finished.
Actually, you can't believe a word of the promotion.
He's a good fighter, like, but
everybody's the pound for pound best when they fight in the main event of a pay-per-view.
I don't think he'll be trouble in the UFC rankers anytime soon, if we want to put it that way. Although, like, he can hit hard and he's a good, well-rounded fighter, so maybe he can. But yeah, he's also a weirdo. He like the most American person on the roster, which is a lot to say when Michael Chandler is there. But yeah. Then we had Macy Barber against Andrea Lee, which was the commentary. God Almighty, I never thought I think the commentary was as bad with DC not on commentary as it was, but the commentary was horrendous, and especially in this Macy Barber Andrea Lee fight. Now, full disclosure here, I picked Andrea Lee to win. She was the underdog. I gave her as one of my bets of the week, and I still think Macy Barber won. So that's how far we're going here. Like, the first round, Macy Barber was beating her up on the feet right before the takedown. She was beating her up on the feet after the takedown, and when she was taken down, she caught Andrea Lee's arm behind her back in some weird fashion and was just beating her, and she landed some big elbows on the ground. There's like no doubt whatsoever that Macy Barber won that round. It was a clear, easy round to score. All 3 judges scored it for her. And then you had Brendan Fitzgerald, Graeme, the lad who came up with that teacher's idea about the effective striking, grappling, and all that shit. Remember that who came up with that t-shirt, that original idea about the judging criteria? Wouldn't it funny, you think a guy who came up with that original idea would actually know a bit about the criteria and not give like the most ridiculous commentary I've seen in a long time here to say, and top control, 2 minutes of top control. She bursted her face open with fucking elbows. Are you kidding me? Top control. Fuck off, like. Are we still at this point, like, why is John Gooden sitting at home? Why is John Gooden sitting at home and this guy is this guy's commentating? Like, I've thought this for a while, and honestly, I didn't want to say it because I thought he's, like, nice, but then he goes and he steals our t-shirt idea, so, like, why not? You know? John Gooden is sitting at home, and this guy who's like,
do you think it's like the aesthetic or the sound of the British voice that they don't? They prefer the American kind of.
Then Michael Bisping in the commentary alongside him.
Like, I know, but Michael Bisping's like a legend that anybody who's been following MMA has known about.
I don't know. I'd rather someone who doesn't speak nonsense.
Yeah, I agree that he should be used a lot more.
Yeah, I just think like MMA fans can see a guy who started watching MMA 3 years ago. Like they can just see it. We all know it. We all know what it's like. And like John Gooden is not one of those guys. John Anik is not one of those guys. Obviously
maybe Fitzgerald isn't just watching it for a few. Maybe he's just like a Goldberg who just can't know.
And I don't think he's necessarily that bad. Like I don't think he's a bad play-by-play guy. I wouldn't mind him there at all. He just needs to stop giving his opinion and stop talking about the fights. Call the play-by-play and just let everything. And now Bisping and Felder weren't much better, to be honest, in this time, but like in general, I'm so sick of him. Like when you have fucking John Gooden at home as well, it just makes it so much worse. If you'd no one else, like fair enough, John Anik needs a bit of a break. If you'd no one else, absolutely throw him in there. He's not that bad. Like I just think he needs to stop with his shit and this top control stuff. Just ridiculous. But anyway, back to the fight. Macy Barber like clearly won the first round. She won the second round. The second round was definitely a bit closer. Close third round as well. I saw a lot of people crying about there was a 30-27 thrown in there. I did think Lee won the third round, but it was again relatively close, and Macy Barber won a split decision. And I thought she was clearly the better fight. Do you disagree or agree, Graeme, or am I gone mad?
I think you can make an argument for Lee winning the fight, but I do think Barber won the fight. I don't really see the 30-27. I did think Lee won the third round, but it was close enough that you can make a case for it, and in my opinion, the right person won. So I wouldn't be too upset about that. There were close rounds, and especially as I said, it just comes down to what you like more, I suppose, in terms of what you think's doing the more damage or the more impact, and maybe from cage side it looks a little bit different on the broadcast, or from Dan Mergliotta's side it looks a bit different the third round, and from Chris Lee's side or whatever. But I think even if the scorecards had gone for Barber, you can definitely see that, and you can also see it for Lee. So I don't think there's any controversy here, even though it's Texas and there usually is controversy. Yeah,
look, the second and third rounds were close enough that I can see a car, but the first round, like the madness over that was my real gripe here. But yeah, I think the right person won. On the fight after that, Jure versus Njokuani, I don't think the right person won. Now, not a robbery by any means, definitely close, and it was a split decision as well. But people are kind of saying as well, oh, there's so many split decisions. Like a lot of these two split decisions as well, like they're very conscionable, like absolutely. But when you see, and as I said, this one was close. Njokuani he just landed the better shots in 2 or 3. Like Jurev had the forward pressure and all that, but we're not scoring forward pressure. We're not scoring top control. We're scoring what happens. And now Njokuani, he could he have done a little bit more?
Octagon control, top pressure. These vital scoring criteria.
Vital things. Njokuani could have done more, I think, but I think he did enough. But it was a close fight. That was one of these ones where I think it just. The wrong guy won, I think. Just barely the wrong guy won, but I think it did. Like, I think you have, the 3 best judges, and there were some good judges on this one, I think, as well. And I think was it Sal D'Amato that scored it? And a great respect for Sal. I think he's a great judge, but it was. And let me just check. Let me just make sure here. It was Sal D'Amato. Chris Lee scored it for Njokuani, and Dan Mergliotta, who's a referee, scored it for Jurev, obviously, to make the split decision. I think if it was the other way, like if Dan wasn't in there, and let's say you'd have been Carnage in there, you'd have David Letheby in there, you'd have Darrell Ransom in there, you had an Eric Cologne in there. I think we get Njokuani winning this fight, and that's very unfortunate for him, So,
like I said earlier, if you're a fighter who's good possibility of going to the decision, maybe avoid Texas.
Indeed.
Seriously, I know it sounds kind of
that's true.
A bit ridiculous to avoid certain commissions or whatever, but there's a history there that you can go back and look, and you can even look at the justice card alone, and even if the right guy won, there is some some wacky scorecards every time the UFC goes to Texas.
100%. Daniel Pineda got a good guillotine over Tucker Lutz. We mentioned Lucas Alexander earlier on. You said he looked good, Graeme. I thought he did too against Stephen Peterson. Another split decision, Trevin Giles, Preston Parsons. You know, a lot of people.
Parsons just ran out of gas like halfway through the second round. He got a powered takedown, and then once Trevin Giles got up, he could visibly just a shell of his former self.
Yeah, it was a very good fight though, and I think it kind of could have gone either way. I don't have too much of a gripe with that one, to be honest. Maybe Parsons just about won it in my opinion, but not toss of a coin, really. Toss of a coin. A brilliant fight then between Vergara and Daniel Da Silva. Absolute fucking war. Great comeback by Vergara after getting 10-8'd in the first round. Brilliant stuff for him. And then the first fight then we had a lad beating another lad, and congratulations to both of those lads. Alex Perez and Manel Kape fight was called off, Graeme. In the middle of Alex Perez released a statement, said he had a seizure backstage afterwards. He kind of collapsed and had to be like taken away, and he's like all good now. He'll have to do a few scans and stuff, and he was like, it's not going to do a weight cut or anything. We'll have to find out what it's about afterwards. I'm like, it probably does have something to do with weight cutting, if we're being honest.
If I have epilepsy, and if I, the day before cut all the water out of my body, I'd probably, I'd probably be exposing myself more to a seizure. And yeah, I don't know. It probably didn't help anyway. Maybe it's not the root cause, but I think something like that, if it is extremely unlikely to be good for your brain, and water and all that stuff in your brain. We've heard people. I'm no brain doctor, but to me as a layman, it sounds like it would definitely affect something like that.
Indeed. Right, let's. The PFL Europe had a card over the weekend as well. We're not going to get massively into that because it was basically the night for Dakota Decheva and Simeon Powell, and they both won relatively easy. Both got finishes, and I think they are going to probably just run through those two divisions. So, I think all the rest of the divisions are probably better than those two, if we're being honest. So I think it's a few months now until the next PFL Europe card. So I'm interested to see that. But next week, there's no UFC next week, but there is PFL. The regular season is starting off, and there's some very interesting fights in this. Brendan Loughnane is in the main event against Marlon Moraes. Will Fleury is making his PFL debut, and he's in the tournament. He's taking on Krzysztof Jotko.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing. I don't know if you've seen any odds for the Will Fleury Jotko fight. I'm interested to see how they kind of call it, and and I'm waiting for him because I have a preview to record for it, and I need the betting odds. So if anyone sees them, let me know. But that's a big fight for Will Fleury, isn't it? Against a guy like Jotko, who's very, very, very experienced. Definitely the toughest fight of Will Fleury's career, isn't it? Absolutely, definitely, and it's kind of what he's been calling for, an opportunity like this, in the big PFL show. This is what he's been looking for. He's struggled to get opponents over the years. Maybe it's kind of worked out for him, because I think the timing has come at a great time for Will. He seems to have improved rapidly over the last few years, even more than before, and it all seems to have kind of come together for him, and he seems to be more confident in himself. And just watching his MMA game, it's just come on leaps and bounds. So I think this has come at the perfect time for Will, and he kind of has a point to prove. And if he can go out there and beat Jotko, that's kind of point proven, and he'd be well on his way to that tournament prize, and that would be life changing for him. So I think this has come at a really good time for him. Jotko is obviously a really difficult opponent. The opponent changed as well. His original opponent got injured, but I don't know what the odds are going to be like here, but I don't know if this is being biased, but I fancy Will to make this a really difficult fight, and to maybe win a decision here, to be honest. Yeah,
it's an interesting one, because you look at Will, he's on a 4-5 win streak at the moment. His last one, Anthony Salamoni, actually won on PFL Europe with a flying knee the other day, and Will kind of destroyed Tarek Suleiman. His hands look good in that as well. He beat Ken Cobain, who's a striker. This is definitely a step up from all of those, but he's been looking good beating all of those. And Jotko, is, you know, we all know, I suppose, what Jotko is at this stage. He's amazing. He's still only 33 years of age, is Jotko. You feel like he's been around for absolutely ages, but like his last fight was in the UFC, lost to Brendan Allen, but he was on a 2-fight win streak before that, beating Jared Marshart and Misha Serkinov. Like, he's some very, very good
10 years in the UFC fighting, you know, good guys, definitely stands to you. But, you know, once you get cut from the UFC, we've seen this happen before where guys, you know, they're maybe not the same level of motivation, but, you know, when you're in a tournament like this with such a big prize, maybe that overrides that. Yeah. And like, you look at his record as well, and like the vast majority of his fights have gone to a decision. So he does like to grind lads out of there. He you know, strike them, but he'll out grapple them and out wrestle them as well. And that's a similar sort of fighter to Will Fleury. And I'm just interested, like, Will is a very, 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 very good competitor, if you want to put it that way. Like, Will loves a competition, and I think that's probably the best part of his game. I mean, you put in a guy who's like directly in competition to you in the same sort of way, you know, everyone who fights in direct competition, but you know what I mean, like a similar sort of matchup. That's the type of thing I think that Will Fleury will rise to, and I'm interested as well to see the betting. As I think it's a toss of a coin. It's a 50-50 fight, to be honest, but if Will Fleury wins this fight, it changes his career, I think. I think this is the fight that like moves Will Fleury to the next level. If he wins this fight, I think he's probably, you know, if he's not the favourite to win it, he's right up there, because there are some very, very good guys in it. You know, Rob Wilkinson, who won it last year, Thiago Santos as well, is going to be a very, very, very tough fight. But, you know, like, you beat Jotko in that sort of manner. Like, could you beat Wilkinson in a similar sort of manner if you don't get caught by Wilkinson's striking? Like, you could, like, maybe you could avoid Santos, but maybe you could go in there and fight Santos. There's some massive fights coming up for Will Fleury, and this one is probably out of those four I talked about there, and I know there's more as well, but out of those four, it's probably you probably got the one who's the biggest name, who is the fight that's most winnable for you. So it's a massive fight for Will Fleury in that one. But, you know, the rest of the card is pretty good as well. I mentioned Loughnane Moraes and the Wilkinson Santos fight, but my guy Raiji Kudo, who I absolutely love, is a dinger of a fighter. He's fighting Movlid Kabuleyev, who's undefeated, 19-0-1. That should be very, very fun, because like Kudo puts it up against everyone. He almost beat Brendan Loughnane last year, you know. So that's interesting. Chris Wade and Bubba Jenkins fighting again for like the 58th time. Martin Hamlet is back fighting Mohamed Fakhreddin. Joshua Silveira, the coach of Conan Silveira, is fighting Sam Kay, who got a chance there last year as well, and there's a lot more under that as well. Dylan Monte is back. Imbika Sanganai is over in the PFL now at the moment as well. He's fighting Corey Hendricks, so that's a fun card there, and it should be pretty good. And then we've Bellator next week as well. The big story from this, I suppose, from the Irish point of view, is Liam McCourt versus Zingano. And do you know what? I've done my preview for this for Bellator, for Sandhagen, and it'll be out during the week. But the one thing I looked at when you go back and you watch their recent fights is that Leah's probably been doing a lot more striking than she normally would be, and Zingano's been doing a lot more wrestling. And I just wonder, like, because we know Leah, and I suppose she has to do a lot more striking because people don't want to go to the ground with her, because she's very good judo and very good jiu-jitsu, and she's very strong as well there, and maybe people think, you know, they can beat her on the feet or whatever. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Kat does, because in all of Kat's recent fights, it's been wrestling. And you know, we know Kat is very good at jiu-jitsu, but like, and I saw, it's funny, I saw Chris Cyborg the other day. She was on with James Lynch, and she was kind of saying, oh, if Leah McCourt can keep this on the feet, I think she's going to have an advantage, and Zingano will probably want to be able to take it to the ground. Now, I think that is completely incorrect, to be honest, for in a multitude of ways. But I wonder, like, if you've only watched the last few Leah McCourt fights, if you only watched the last few Kat fights, you're probably thinking, oh, maybe Kat will take it to the ground. And if she does, I think that could be a big mistake, because I'd like, on the feet,
Kat has good head kicks. She's good from range. She's good at like not getting hit and just like staying elusive. I don't think like she's not the best technical striker in the world or anything like that, but she's good at not being drawn into a striking matchup that she doesn't want. Like Leah has definitely improved her striking, but if she gets into a matchup with someone who's very good at striking, I think it could be a struggle. Now Kat is not that either, but like is Leah going to have the ability to kind of close the distance on Kat when she's like ultra defensive and just throwing a few head kicks from the outside? That's going to be tough, I think. But when the fight hits the ground, I think it's a brilliant fight, honestly, because Leah, she just turns. She looks so athletic. She looks so strong on the ground, where on the feet it looks like a little bit unnatural, but improving, as I said. And I think for the same for Kat, I think she looks a little bit unnatural on the feet as well. But when it gets to the ground, she looks very, very good. I just wonder who's going to initiate the grappling. And if Kat does it, like she's been doing in recent fights, I wonder what it's going to be like. Because she goes for a takedown against Leah. Leah turns that hip, lands over. She could end up in mount or anything. And that's a game changer then, because people are probably thinking about this and thinking, okay, maybe it's a big step up for Leah McCourt. But like Kat Zingano has in the past, given away fights by bad decision making, and if she makes that decision, I think, to grapple with Leah, now she could win, and I'm not saying she's going to get the fight to the ground, she's going to get the stride, but I think Leah has a better chance of winning the fight and finishing the fight on the ground than maybe she does on the feet. And if Kat engages that, I think it could be a mistake. What are your thoughts, Graeme? It's a massive fight for Leah, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge fight for Leah, very important fight for both girls, really. Obviously, Kat Zingano's been around a long time, has a lot of experience. As you said, though, she is maybe, are you into that? She's a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes she can kind of get in her own way a little bit. And if she goes in there and does, tries to be too wrestle heavy and doesn't really set up her takedown attempts, as you said, she could end up in on the wrong side of the takedown or the throw and on the bottom in a bad position. And that could be, the most likely finishing route to victory for Leah. Kat's experience, she knows you can't just dive in. Leah will have to kind of make her desperate on the feet, and can she do that? She's obviously been working on her strike, and she's been trying to show that, getting comfortable with the strike. And sometimes things can click, and you can make great strides, and that'll yet to be seen. But I think this fight is going to go everywhere. I think it's probably going to go to a decision, probably a close decision, and it'll come down to, it probably will come down to who can land the better shots on the feet. And, I think Leah will have to show improvement in her striking, which she has been doing and trying to show. But yeah, this one I think is very close and could go either way, and it's probably going to be a close decision.
I think someone's getting finished, to be honest. I think I think someone's getting submitted here. I do think the fight will hit the ground. I do think Kat's going to wrestle. And I think honestly, this one could come down to who gets on top first. Like, I can see Leah getting on top of Kat, mounting her and landing some big shots and maybe either getting the finish or getting the armbar. I can see Kat maybe getting on top of Leah, landing some big shots and getting the armbar, the rear naked. Just like I feel like that's the sort of fight we're going to get here. We might have a bit on
who ends up on top first is going to have a massive advantage.
I do think that, because I think on the feet, I don't think if it's 15 minutes on the feet, I agree with you. I think it'll probably go to a decision, and it could be a close decision. I would probably just about favour Kat maybe in that way, but even let's say you do favour Kat in the ground, to get the takedown and get on top, all it takes is kind of one mistake for her to not. And you have to remember as well here, and I think this could be a big part, especially if it turns into a grappling match on the ground. Leah is way bigger than Kat. Leah is a genuine 145 pounder, whereas Kat's not. She fought her whole career at 135. She's only gone up to 145 because she's in Bellator now. I think if Kat was in the UFC, maybe she could have gone down to 125. That, when you're playing a strength game on the ground, is a massive thing, I think. I think it really is. And I wonder how much of a part that plays in it. And Kat is, as I said, a little bit older now as well. I think it's a massive opportunity. She's kind
of from the last generation where they're not coming in kind of learning all styles at the same time. They're coming in with a base, and maybe the game has passed her by a little bit. And, how motivated is she compared to Leah? Maybe that'll play a factor in this, this is a huge fight for Leah. If she can win here, she puts herself straight into the, you know, the title talk, and if she loses, she has to build back. So it's definitely the same case with Kat Zingano, but she's been, you know, been there, done that. Is the motivation the same? She's been through a lot in her life and her career and all that stuff. So sometimes little things like that, like how much work you put into the gym, how motivated for this you are, and you know, sometimes that can turn to nerves. Other times that can turn to, you know, focus. And you know, I think I'm struggling who to pick here. I think it's going to be really close, really close. But I'd probably just lean to Leah. But yeah, it's a really interesting fight. As you said, it could go a number of ways. There's a number of methods of victory here. I wouldn't be surprised with a lot of things happening. And you know, it's definitely a big fight, and one I'll definitely be tuning in for.
I think the motivation part is an interesting one, because like, you would think this is a #1 contender fight, more than likely. Like, the winner of this will be fighting Cyborg. Like, Cyborg has kind of said that if Cyborg comes back, if not, they'll be fighting for a title anyway, because I don't think this can go on any longer. But also, like, Zingano was supposed to be fighting Cyborg now, you know? It was supposed to be her time right now. And she's had to fight Leah to maybe earn that spot, which can go one of two ways. Either, as I said, you will be massively motivated because this is the fight to get you there, or you're thinking, well, I was already there, why the fuck am I having this fight? You know, and it's not that's nothing got to do with Leah. It could be Leah, Sinead Harry, could be anyone, you know, and we've seen that before, and people have fallen at that final hurdle because they think they should be at the finishing post. And I just wonder if that's an issue here. And Kat is 40 as well. I just, like, people probably thinking, what, you're biased Irish lads here, you're gone stone mad picking against Kat Zingano on this fight. And maybe we are, but I think the bet here is probably Kat Zingano straight up, Leah McCourt by submission, or maybe both of them by submission. That's my bet. Back both of them by submission, probably get like 5-1 submission on both of them. And I think one of them bets will win.
Which way do you see Kat Zingano being the bookies' favourite, just because of the?
Oh yeah, I think she'd be a big favourite. Oh, it's not up yet, is it? MMA, what's it called? Best fight odds, best. They usually have Bellator up a little bit before, but maybe not. UFC, no, they don't have the Bellator up yet. Yeah, no. Yeah, I do. I think Kat will be a pretty sizable favourite based on what she's done, you know, in her career. And, you know, Leah hasn't reached that point yet, but I think I haven't gone back. Like, I was thinking, coming into watching the tape on it, I was thinking, like, yeah, I'm probably picking Kat here, to be honest. But then I went to watch it, and like, and see, it's mostly the way Kat has been fighting. It's more because the grapple heavy nature of her recent fights has been astonishing to me recently, and I just wonder how much of that is a function of her injuries that she's had in the past. Because remember, you're sitting there with a very bad fucking knee now, but remember her knee injury? She was out for like 2 years with an absolutely fucked knee. Like, you're 40 years of age now, that can't be feeling good. You know, and I wonder if she'd like fighting differently because of that. No, not that she doesn't look good or loose in the feet or anything, but I think if she wrestles, she might be playing into her own game, right? But she's also playing into the game of Leah McCourt, and I think it's a dangerous way to fight against Leah. So interesting. And look, it's a massive fight for Leah McCourt. We talked about, you know, Kat Zingano being #1 contender. Leah McCourt, and you know, Leah, Sinead, I think it's toss of a coin between the two of them who's the #1 contender, because obviously Sinead beat Leah, but then this win over Kat Zingano is bigger than anything anyone has done. So it's massive. It's a massive fight. And, you know, what a time for women's MMA in Ireland as well. Let's say, like, Leah just to be in this position, but if she wins it, Danny McCormack won the title, Sinead just win a massive fight, Shauna Bannon just won her fight as well and is undefeated. God almighty, I think we're going to get a lot of backlash no matter who wins our Women's Fighter of the Year for 2023 this year.
Well, you know, just to touch on something you said there, like, you know, that's kind of why I don't want, part of the reason I don't want Shauna and Danny to fight, because it knocks one back. Like, kind of like if you mentioned Ian's interview with Danny, if people go and watch that, she goes into it, and I think she's right to look at it like emotionless and to look at it logically and to think, you know, why can't both of us, like, one of us is going to have to lose, and for the Irish scene and for us, that doesn't really make sense to do. Like, you know, we're both trying to get to the UFC or whatever our goals are, and there's no need to really do this fight. So, I think I'm, over the years I've been on to keep the Irish away from the Irish, and I'm still on that train, especially when they're up and comers with, early career records. And, if you've been there, done that, kind of been around the promotions. And
but what about Lee versus Sinead then? Like, Lee versus Sinead was one of the best fights ever. I fucking loved that.
Yeah, it was a great fight, but I don't know. One of them has to lose, and it's a setback.
It isn't a setback. He has fighting here to fight for a title.
Yeah, it's true. But if she had gone out and won that night, and Sinead had fought somebody else and won that night, she probably would have been in this position quicker. But maybe it worked out. Maybe it gave her time to improve. I think Liam McCourt's improving at a more rapid level than Zingano, if Zingano's even improving at all. So maybe it worked out for the best. But just in general, I prefer to keep the young pros away from each other.
I think it's a case-by-case basis. I think with the Shauna and Danny one, it'd be better to keep them apart, because I think Danny deserves to be in the UFC right now. Like, if Danny is still in Invicta, then I think they should probably fight. But, we'll see on that one. But anyway, massive fight for Leah. Looking forward to it. The rest of the Bellator card, do you know what? It's not the biggest card in terms of names, but there are some good fights. The main event is all right. Daniel James is an absolute beast. He's fighting Marcelo Golm, who's actually weirdly a very good athlete and moves around well and is a good striker. But James is just like, he's a bit of a Derek Lewis. He'll just wait, he'll fall on top of you and just destroy you, because he's so powerful and so strong. And I think he probably will end up doing that.
Rest in peace, that Derek Lewis.
Yeah. What's that about? Rest in peace, Derek Lewis?
No, the old Derek Lewis that used to do that.
Yeah, now he tries to be a fighter. He tries to be good now. What the fuck? John Salter's fighting Aaron Jeffrey, coming off of his win over Austin Vanderford. Salter a little bit older now, but a good wrestler. Tough enough matchup for Jeffrey, but I think if he comes through it, he's right thereabouts at 185. Jaleel Willis is fighting Rustam Kabilov, who's coming back after, I think, 4 years out. We all remember him for his suplexes and all of that. Willis, a good striker. That's a fun matchup. Sullivan Colley and Luke Traynor. That's a massive fight. One of the biggest prospects coming out of the UK against one of the biggest prospects coming out of the US. Very interesting. Rat Garbage is on this card. Graeme Mandel-Nallo. He's fighting Adam Piccolotti after losing to Banui in his last fight. That's not a bad fight with Joey Davis. 8-0 is on the card. Archie Colgan 6-0. Lucas Pennant,
how many fights are on this card? 25 fights?
A lot of fights. A big step up for Lance Gibson. I like this fight against Vladimir Tokov, Anatoly Tokov's brother, out of the Fedor team. He's a good, well-rounded fighter, so that's a big step up, I think, for him. I love the fight as well between Mike Hamill and Nick Brown. Maria Henderson, Vincent Henderson's wife, is on this as also. Do you know, there's a lot of fights on it, 1,000 fights, but 17 fights, I believe, but some interesting ones. But that's about it now. Anything else to talk about, Graeme? Anything else happening in the world of MMA? What do you think? Actually, I got a bit of stick for it because of these fucking idiots online. But Colby Covington threatened to kill John Anik. What did you think of that? Was that pretty bad? If
you're not clearly doing a stick for so long, it would be more, I don't know. I think John Anik knows that it's just a stick. The whole Colby Covington thing, I think it's pretty well. If you follow Colby throughout his career, you know that this has kind of been persona's been turned on a few years ago to keep himself kind of in the UFC and keep to give himself more opportunities, and he's kind of saying stupid shit is kind of his go-to. So, if somebody else was saying it, maybe I'd care more.
Yeah, I just think
still though it's a bit weird.
Yeah. I think Colby can keep his shtick, he can do all his shtick, but if you say the words, John, I better be careful, I'm going to leave his kids without a father. Those are serious words. And people have said,
in Colby's head, I think it's like a pro wrestling promo. And
but that's Colby's head. He can keep that. He can think whatever he wants, but we're allowed to think fucking stuff too. Look, if he says that about Usman, if he says that about Edwards, Bilal, fair enough. If fucking, Sandhagen says it about Vera, if Connor says it about Chandler says it about Connor, all's fair in love and war. These things happen. Fighters are going to say it, and we can't get too mad about that, right? He says it about a commentator who he's not going to fight, who he's just being a cunt. John Anik probably understands it, right? But what if John Anik's kids are at school and their friends like see this clip of this lad saying that they're going to kill their father. Like, what do you think that's like for them? Like, that's
it's true.
That's fucking that's ridiculous. Like, you and like the UFC, right? I emailed the UFC and asked them for a comment on this and got no reply. The UFC. Imagine any other organization in the world where a co-worker, and fair enough, it's a fighter versus fighter, as I said, but a co-worker threatens to kill another co-worker. Is there, and like, let's say it's not like WWE, not scripted, any other, like, imagine if I came out here and I threatened to fucking kill Ian O'Neill, you'd be like, oh, Sean, you can't do that, you're gone, or whatever, you know? It's just... It cannot be done. And for the UFC not to come out and say something, for the UFC not to come out and reprimand him, is absolutely disgraceful. And I think all them journalists...
Did you expect the UFC to come out and reprimand him?
But
I didn't.
I didn't. Of course I didn't. No, of course I didn't. But like, why didn't none of the journalists that were there the last day ask Dana White about it? What, your play-by-play guy, your most famous commentator, gets a death threat from a fighter and you don't say anything about it. And like, people say, oh, he's not actually going to kill him. It doesn't matter. He fucking said it. It's out now. It's been done. I just think
that threat is probably a little bit like...
It wasn't. It was 100%.
I know what you mean, but it makes it sound more like... I know it's technically what it is, but yeah, I think... I hope John Anik knows that, like, and hopefully behind the scenes he's gonna reached out and said, oh, you know, so he kind of said like it's part of the stick or whatever. But yeah, he's definitely crossed the line a few times. But this is probably, you know, this is probably, in my opinion, worse than what he's done before. But I also just like if he wasn't such a clown character, it would obviously probably get more headlines and be more kind of a subject that people would want to bring up and talk to Dana White, and they probably should have anyway. But with Colby, you know, Dana's probably just going to be like, you know, Colby's going to Colby, and that's kind of what he's been doing with his stick for the last while. And Dana's not gonna, you know, Dana wants to make money off Colby. He doesn't want him on the sidelines. He doesn't care about this, and you know, maybe he should, but I'd hope that, you know, as I said, something kind of has been said to Colby to John behind the scenes to kind of say, yeah, sorry about that, or
yeah. Like I honestly, I could not give a shit about Colby's whole shtick and everything. Like, I ignoring. I saw people were talking about like, oh, you know, Colby just wants everyone to talk about it. Like, I never talk about Colby apart from him as a fighter, and I think he's a very good fighter, and I've said that many times.
That's what he does. That's what he does want, but you can overstep the.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened here. Like, he massively overstepped it. But like this Colby shtick, it's literally, and it's funny because his fans are like, oh, we're smarter than you. His fans are the stupidest idiots on planet Earth, because all they do is listen and bask in the words of a guy who, when he says anything, they say he doesn't mean it. Every single word he says, they love it. They take it as sacrosanct. But if someone else comes in and says, what the fuck, Colby shouldn't have put the death threat, Colby's joking, it's a stick. But like, you're living and dying by this shtick. What does that make you? That makes you a fucking mark. Is that what that makes you? His fans are actually like the most embarrassing people on planet Earth. They really are. Like, they're, and like, not his fans as a fighter. You can be a fan of Colby. I'm a fan of Colby as a fighter. I think he's a very, very good fighter, but it's ridiculous. And also, did you hear Dana saying like, Colby's getting the title shot because if Kamaru Usman didn't exist, Colby would have been the champion for the last few years. I'm like, that's not how it works. Are you serious? Like,
if John Jones didn't exist, loads of people would have been champion.
It's just bizarre. Fucking, when's Josh Koscheck getting his title shot is what I'm thinking. Like, you know, if GSP wasn't there, Koscheck would have been champion for like 5 years. He deserves
the aliens are coming, Diego.
Yeah. Where's Bobby Southward's title shot? That's what I want to know. But anyway, yeah. Cowboy in the Hall of Fame. Thoughts, Graeme?
Yeah, well, like the whole Hall of Fame thing, I don't know. When you have politics involved and, oh, this guy did something Dana didn't like 20 years ago and that's why he's not there and all this stuff going on, it just degrades it massively, and I just don't really care about it. Even these wings they have and stuff is just stupid to me. Yeah, I don't know.
Like Cowboy,
they're going to put in the guys they like and not put in the guys they don't like, and you know, it's not about what you did in terms of your actual performances and accolades and all that stuff. It's some about that, but it's also about politics and who likes who and who's, you know, who's played ball.
I don't really understand Hall of Fames because it's a very American thing, like, but I think I listened to Dave Meltzer talking about his Hall of Fame, and he talks about it being like the Baseball Hall of Fame and it being a very merit-based thing, that like there's really good wrestlers throughout the years who are not in the Hall of Fame because they didn't meet like the criteria of being like draws and all of these different things, and you have to, like, in the baseball one, I'm sure the basketball one, you have to have a high achievement, and I'm glad that we don't have a real MMA Hall of Fame, but I'm glad that the UFC Hall of Fame isn't that. I'm glad that Colby got in, to be honest. Like, would he get into any other sports Hall of Fame for what he's done? No. You know, he failed. I think someone said he's 0-4 in UFC and WEC title fights. But he was an entertaining guy throughout the years, an entertaining character, fought some really good guys, fought in short notice. And MMA is as much about
exciting fights, loads of finish, would fight on whenever they wanted them to fight on short notice.
Yeah.
Like, you know, all that stuff.
That to me is a Hall of Famer. Like, Diego Sanchez to me is 100% a Hall of Famer. He should 100% be in the Hall of Fame. A guy who went down and produced fights like that. As much as GSP is a Hall of Famer, as much as Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, you know, and Jens Pulver obviously gone in as well this year, all of them lads are Hall of Famers. And I think in the same Hall of Fame, not in the different wings as you said or anything like that, that's what MMA is. And I think to give a true reflection of the history of MMA, I think exciting guys like that should be in the Hall of Fame. So I'm glad that Cowboy went in. Now, if I saw a funny thing last night, and I know you'll be all over this, but someone asked Cowboy, like, what's he been doing since he retired? And I can't remember the second thing he said. Maybe, let's say the second thing he said was drinking. He said, like, doing steroids and drinking or something like that. And Anderson Silva in the Hall of Fame this year. Cowboy Cerrone, two people who failed drugs tests in the past. Like, in other Hall of Fames, would that happen as well? Like, you know, probably not. But I'm completely off the high horse with the drugs things and all. And have been for years. Here's the question. We'll end it on this, Graeme. And I was thinking about this last night, right? Let's say Conor McGregor refuses to be part of the USADA system from now on. Like, he says, I am never going to fight again if I have to do USADA. He's like, well, no, I will fight for you. I will fight for you in September against Michael Chandler, wherever you want, wherever in the world, for this amount of money. I will absolutely do it, but I refuse to take part in this USADA thing. Do you think the UFC put on the fight?
If he comes out and says it and kind of looks like he's power moving them and forcing them into something, maybe not. But I think, you know, as an overall, I think a private contractor who's, like, you know, out of camp or whatever, being woken up at 4 a.m, no matter who it is a bit ridiculous. It's just a difficult one because you don't want guys in there like, you know, Vitor Belfort up there knocking out people's eyes and things like that, like doing serious damage to people. But USADA is just a I don't know, just a mess. And, you know, just the recent things are over the years with the Nate Diaz coming out and saying what they told him, and just the IV thing recently, and you know, the whole Mark Hunt, Brock Lesnar situation is just a mess. And I think the UFC would probably like to get rid of it. I think it was there as a function, I think, to professionalize, in quotation marks, the sport and make it like a real sports league when they were trying to sell the company. And it's probably hassle they don't need, and, you know, something that the fighters obviously don't want to be woken up and stuff like that. But there has to be, you know, some kind of, I think, testing. If you just let guys go in there fully, you know, juiced up, and people get brain damage, and then in the future these lawsuits are going to come and you're basically fucked.
Yeah,
it's a difficult situation.
It is a difficult situation because, like, it feels, and I don't know, maybe it'll change, maybe this time next week he'll start putting in tests and stuff, but it feels like he's no interest in doing that anymore. And I, like, as you said, I wonder, do the UFC even want to do this anymore? Like, could this be the time when they actually change it, when they actually get rid of USADA? Maybe if I'm the UFC right now, I'm going, well, like, we're getting rid of USADA, we're going to bring in someone else, WADA or whatever. In the meantime, you know, over the next 6 months, we're going to have the commission testing. They're still getting tested until we get a new, new provider or whatever, and they never do it. Just like, we forgot. You know, that's what the UFC should do. They should actually just get rid of it. Like, and I've thought this for a while. I think Luke Thomas was right 100%.
Like having it there and getting rid of it, and then if something happens to somebody and they see you in the future,
Jesus, do you like the UFC don't seem to care about that at all? Like, you know. So I don't know. I don't know. I think the idea of USADA was great, but I think in practice, I think it's and it's supposed to be like pro fighters, and I think it's like massively anti-fighter in a lot of way, especially the lower down guys. Like it's probably a bigger conversation for another day, but yeah, I think like, and we've been saying this, I said this a couple of times before the McGregor situation, but I think the McGregor situation has really brought it to light how unfair and weird it is, and even not from really necessarily even for McGregor, I think more so for other people, but yeah, and like look what they did to Tom Lawler, look what they did to many fighters, and now they're not even telling us, it's all completely in the dark. Is that what USADA was supposed to be? I thought USADA was supposed to be the truth being unveiled. Just bizarre. But anyway, we leave it at that. Right. Patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast, at Sean Sheehan BA, at SevereMMA, at SevereMMA pod. Follow us over on Instagram as well, SevereMMA.com. And yeah, check us all out. If you're not subscribed, please do. Our numbers have grown massively over the last 6 months, and we're massively appreciative of all of you. But still in all, I think like 80% of our listeners are not subscribed, something massive like that. So if you are listening, just hit the subscribe button, whether you're on SoundCloud, whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on iTunes, or if you're listening to this on YouTube, wherever, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button and all of that. Tell a friend, tweet it out, put it on Facebook, tag us, and we will share it. Graeme, inspirational quote of the week, throw it at us.
It's time the tale we're told of how you took a child and you made him old.
See you next week. Good luck.